Well, I was a big fan of the 1990s Batman the Animated Series, so why didn't this new series, clearly inspired by the old, hook me in? I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. The IMDb synopsis for Batman Caped Crusader reads, "Welcome to Gotham City, where the corrupt outnumber the good, criminals run rampant, and law-abiding citizens live in a constant state of fear. Forged in the fire of tragedy, wealthy socialite Bruce Wayne becomes something both more and less than human: the Batman. His one-man crusade for justice attracts unexpected allies within the GCPD and City Hall, but his heroic actions spawn deadly, unforeseen ramifications." Okay, so what does this basic animal feel like? I'm not going to talk much about the story beats themselves. All 10 episodes of the first season dropped on Amazon Prime today, and I watched just the first 3. I was originally planning on watching more, but I just realized, no, I've got a sense of what this thing is after 3. The setting is low-tech and a pseudo-period piece, so it feels very kind of like noir-inspired and almost like it's taking place in the 40s. I don't know my history well enough to know if they were limiting themselves to the technology of the 40s. Certainly Batman's grappling gun brings into question, if that could have been pulled off in the 40s or even today. But it feels largely like 1940s. The Batcave largely has a lot of bookshelves and not some kind of big bat computer and stuff like that. So it looks like they're really going for this kind of grounded vibe, pulling inspiration from the 1940s Superman serials and the 1940s Batman comics in many ways. Although clearly they're paying tribute as well to the 90s Batman animated series. And that's kind of where this show is kind of getting tripped up for me in terms of my ability to enjoy it. The aesthetics are paying tribute to the early years of comics in a number of ways, but some things about those early years feel silly to me, or today, with just a modern eye. Like, for example, Catwoman's costume in this show is modeled after her 1940s costume, which is a face mask, purple dress, high heels, and a green cape. That is what she uses to go and rob people, to burglar places. And she is inexplicably skilled in that. She gets caught, so arguably she's not like this great cat burglar, but still you have to have some level of skill to break into buildings and stuff. And even more stunningly and inexplicably, she's able to, out of the blue, recruit a Black Panther who responds to her commands. And I'm like, you clearly just set her up as a broke socialite. You got to explain at least some of these, and certainly the cat, the giant Black Panther thing. But they're just not interested in doing that, which is very in line with material that is written for a younger audience that's not going to demand those kinds of explanations. The synopsis that I read on IMDb, it really makes it sound more serious to me than the show feels to me as I watch it. Characters act in ways that disregard the stakes of their situation or that are otherwise overly simplistic. Again, this is all fine if it's written, as I think this show in many ways is, for younger viewers. But that's not me. And you might be saying at this point, well, Peter, come on, just relax. It's meant to evoke the original animated series. It's nostalgic fun. Can't you just have some nostalgic fun? Well, fine. Please enjoy this with my blessing if that's what you want from it. I think a number of viewers probably will find that it scratches an itch, takes them back to yesteryear, and they enjoy that. That's just not what I want. As much as I love the original Batman animated series, I put on an episode for a little bit after watching these 3, and I was like, yeah, I'm not really feeling sucked into the old series either. So it's just, in the time that I watched it, it was amazing and so groundbreaking, but it's not what I look for now in animated storytelling about DC characters like Batman, unless they are going to grow it up some and make it more serious. And I just don't think that's what's happening in this show. So who is the audience then? The dark noir, I can only speculate, so I'm not claiming. There's always going to be exceptions. But the dark noir vibes seem less a genuine attempt at lending weight and seriousness, which they certainly could have been and at a glance would seem to be. but they seem more like they're just paying tribute to, as I said earlier, early comics and the animated series. Who's that primarily going to speak to? Well, I think people who are in their 40s or older who watched the show when it was first broadcast or not too long after that. So maybe it can go as young as 30s, I suppose, in general. Of course, always going to be exceptions. But I think primarily they're looking at people my age. I'm 46, so probably like early 40s, late 40s, and older. And that's if the people in that demographic want nostalgia or want to introduce Batman to the kids in their lives, and have something that they'll kind of get something out of too. So I think that there is probably a target audience, and that's probably the target audience, despite the fact that, of course, other people will enjoy it as well. But the Penguin being reimagined as a female nightclub owner who performs cabaret numbers at her own club, I have no idea what's going on with that choice. It seems like a choice made just to say, ha, gotcha, this is different, Both films and comics in the last 5 years have given great legitimacy to the Penguin as a crime boss villain, who for many years I was just unable to take seriously, but in the Batman movie and in the recent Penguin comic book series, I'm taking this character seriously. I'm like, I can see this character growing, becoming a threat, or at the very least, I'm taking him more seriously. There's such great material to mine from this character, and this has been going on long enough that they could have drawn inspiration from what the comic books have done. But they went with this, I think, far less effective direction that makes the Penguin seem a bit silly, or at least pedestrian again. So that's just one really glaring example of some general things going on, opportunities to be serious that are just like, nope, we're going to go with something a little bit more silly, a little bit more old-timey, just for the sake of, doing that or appealing to kids or something. As far as the cast goes, though, I feel like the voices are all solid choices. I mean, it's very similar casting choices to the original series. I don't mean that they're sound-alikes, maybe a little bit with the actor playing Bruce Wayne and Batman, but I think mostly it's just the tone of the performances have that similar pseudo-serious vibe to them that felt very fitting with this series as well. So I really don't have any complaints as far as the performances. As far as like the visual presentation, I talked about the production design, the style of it, but what about the animation itself? It's definitely less choppy and is more advanced and a bit more clean and presented in widescreen, all compared to the 90s series. But it's not such a leap forward in technique and in polish that you couldn't just introduce younger viewers to the original series. I think if they're okay with putting up with this, I mean, if they like are fine with this, but they look at the old series and they're like, no, then they're probably putting up with some elements of this show as well, because I don't think the quality is like light years apart. And this show is still on Amazon. If you look at the recommended viewing or what other people watched and stuff, it will take you down, but on Amazon Prime Video, to the series on Max that you have to get a subscription for. Just ignore that and go into the search field for Prime Video and put in Batman the Animated Series. There's an entirely different set or compilation of the animated series that is Amazon Prime's, the one that they have rights to. And I turned it on and I was like, this is a nice, really nice looking, great sounding remaster of the show. So that's an option. If you have Amazon Prime to watch Caped Crusader, then you should be able to watch most, if not all, of the original series. And I think that would certainly be an option. Either way, I do wonder if younger viewers will appreciate the animation style or if they'd prefer something more modern, because it definitely does not look as modern even as some of the DC animated movies that have come out, especially like the New 52 adaptation era. Not the Tomorrowverse so much, that was really pulling from the 60s Hanna-Barbera kind of animation look. But the ones prior to that were inspired by the New 52, I think that animation all looks more modern than this show does. So, it's not all that much more edgy in its content than this show, that I can't help but wonder if the audience that's a young part of the younger crowd that maybe they're appealing to with this show would just enjoy those DC animated movies more. So I suspect this is more of a nostalgia play than trying to reach out to younger viewers. But again, that's not what I want. I don't often talk about the music, but the score is worth commenting on it because it evokes the vibe of those classic, Warner Brothers animation shorts that then, in its own way, the Batman animated series was taking inspiration from as well. Even though it had a much more serious tone to it, it has that kind of orchestral vibe to it. That can sometimes, like initially, it took a little adjustment. I was like, does this feel a little silly? Okay, no, I think I just need to rewire my expectations and go with it, because you've watched lots of Batman animated stuff with this kind of vibe to it. Just settle into it again, But it is noticeably different if you're tuned into music and different styles of scoring. But yeah, definitely in line with the original series, I thought. A strong Batman theme hasn't emerged for me yet in the first 3 episodes, and the opening credits, which you would think would present that theme, feel more brooding and mysterious, and I thought never quite swelled at the end like I thought they would to a strong dark hero vibe, some kind of a brief statement of a strong dark hero theme. Never quite gets there. So the music fell short for me, I would have to say, in general. As far as themes, is there anything of moral, philosophical, or spiritual significance going on in the themes of this thing that could trigger some worthwhile thoughts or conversation? I'm not seeing anything at this point. Maybe because I'm just not able to be tuned into that, because I was just distracted by the other things that were not working for me. I suppose some meta-theme comment could be made about some demographic box checking in the character redesigns, but I don't think it really intrudes or stands out unless maybe you're sensitive to it and prone to being distracted by it, which I can be at times and was a little bit here, but that's on me. I don't think it legitimately did any harm to the storytelling, unless maybe the Penguin gender swap was somehow part of that effort. I have no idea. But that definitely was not working for me. All right. I have no idea what your tastes are in animation or TV shows, but if I were a time traveler, I'd go back in time and say, Peter, skip this one. It's just not for you. And given the current age and interests of your boys, 13 and 17 right now, and both of them not necessarily super into superheroes, it's probably not for them either, at least not taking priority over some of the DC animated movies that you'd still love for them to watch and think that they would enjoy more. This one is rated TV-14 for violence, alcohol use, and foul language, and those are all of my thoughts for now on Batman Caped Crusader, episodes 1 through 3. I'd love, as always, to get your thoughts and reactions in the comments below. Please like, share, subscribe, click that bell to stay connected. I want to thank the Spirit Blade Insiders for their support and for making so much of my content possible. You can get info about the benefits of joining at patreon.com/spiritbladeproductions. And then I hope you'll check out our podcast and stay connected to all CGC content over at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. For more chat about geek entertainment, answers to your questions, and news from the wider world of Christian geekery, get the Christian Geek Central podcast today on iTunes and other podcast services.